We've talked about confronting, which is what our last topic was. And now we're going to kind of think about serving. And I love this because it's serving rather than getting a resolution. It's serving. And so with that, we are going to go far in conflict. If my goal is to serve you, and by God's grace, your goal is to serve me, wow, we have an excellent launching point. So, following being reconciled by God's grace, what does love in conflict look like? And so we're thinking about that as serving. Now, we know, though, that when we are in conflict, our temptation is going to be to win, right? So instead of serving, it is going to be winning. And you might feel that adrenaline rushing through you all of a sudden as you confront a problem, and you're like, wow, I've got all this energy here, and that energy is given by God to you to say, serve. Instead, you're like, victory. And so victory really is in serving instead of just putting forward the outcome that I want. Now, that doesn't mean that your outcome is a bad outcome, or that what you want is a bad thing to want. That may be you humbly seeking to serve. And so we're going to try to talk through that. But first and foremost, our ground rule in this sense is I'm committed to serving. It's neat where Jesus goes with this in Mark 10, verses 35 to 41. If you have your Bibles, you can go ahead and turn there. And we'll work up to verses 42 and 45 in a minute. And you are familiar with this passage in Mark 10, verses 35 to 45. And it's when James and John, Mark 10:35, the sons of Zebedee, came up to him and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." We know that is not going to go well when our kids ask us that. And he said to them, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant to us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory." And right now, they're not imagining any conflict. They're just like getting what they want. And Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, to go through my suffering, to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" They said to him, We are able." Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared." And so far, there's no conflict. But when the 10 heard it, they began to be indignant at James and John. And here we see some conflict brewing, right? They have a problem with James and John request. Why didn't I think of that first? And Jesus, in verse 42, Jesus called them to him and said to them, "You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and the great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." And we see here how Jesus responds to conflict with not saying, "Yep, you go get it," right? Like push hard for your way. No, that is lording over like the Gentiles. Instead, this conflict is an opportunity to teach about being a servant. And really, conflict is an opportunity to say, how can I follow Jesus to the cross? Right? Conflict is an opportunity to follow. How can I follow Jesus to the cross? Not in a substitutionary kind of way. His work is finished. But how can I follow him in dying to myself? How many of our conflicts would we still have if that were our commitment? Right? Like really deciding where we want to go for dinner. And sometimes we know that is just saying, I'll serve you by deciding. Right? But if our commitment is to serving first. Now, we're going to look here at some ministry strategies to serve someone while you're in conflict. So you want to serve, and you're still in conflict. And that may not be a bad conflict at all. It doesn't have to be selfish. It may be, what is the right I mean, and we could come up with so many examples of potential conflicts, but how do we serve while in conflict? Well, one way to serve is by knowing the person, okay? We serve someone by knowing them. People are different, and they need to be served in different ways at different times. Serving is going to be an individualized plan, right? We are caring for individuals as we serve. And so we want to know them. And here's some verses. And just notice here the individualized attention. We see it in Colossians 1:28, how Paul says that we proclaim Christ, warning everyone, teaching everyone with all wisdom, that we may present everyone mature in Christ. We have an interest in individuals. 1 Thessalonians 2:9. For you remember, brothers, our labor and toil. We work night and day, that we might not be a burden to any of you while we proclaim to you the gospel of God. 1 Thessalonians 2:11 and 12. For you know how, like a father with his children, we exhorted each one of you, encouraged you, and charged you to walk in a manner worthy of God, who calls you into his own kingdom and glory. And last, 1 Thessalonians 5:14. We urge you, brothers, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with them all. So we see all this ministry to individuals, and particularly in that last verse, we see that different people need different kinds of ministry at different time. Is this person that I'm in conflict with, and it may not be a selfish conflict, but are they someone who's idle and unruly? Are they someone who's faint-hearted? Are they someone who is weak? Okay, how can I best serve this person at this time? So this means you're going to be concerned on what's going on in that person's heart. It is so easy to focus in conflict on the issue rather than on the person. What is going on in that person's heart? How can I think as charitably as possible? How can I be as understanding as possible? How can I be sympathetic? Can I even be interested into what their day is like, what their week has been like, what they're dealing with at home, how things are going with their kids? How does this person tick? Right? Like, I'm noticing a pattern here. Details are very important to them, or details are not important to them at all. Now, this is not understanding your enemy's weakness so you can crush them. Right? It's not like, I'm going to find the way. And this is being concerned about knowing the person. That will take us a long way in conflict. How did God make this person? How are they different from me? So that's a strategy, but maybe strategy is kind of a hard word. It's a good thing to have a strategy if your goal is serving. Okay, so another strategy is godly listening and godly speaking. I know that these are kind of some basic ground rules here, but if we're knowing the person and if we're committed as we go into this conflict, I'm going to listen in a way that pleases God, and I'm going to speak in a way that pleases God. Okay? So what is going on in their hearts? And then I'm going to be concerned. Again, this is why we always start with pleasing him. So what is godly listening? Well, this is more than a step. Really, it's learning to be like God. We don't understand everything about how God listens, but we know that God is a triune God, and for eternity, there is communication between Father, Spirit, and the Son. And we could show verses showing this. It's not necessarily our communication. For me to communicate with Caitlin now is going to be learning, right? God doesn't learn. He knows Father, Son, and Spirit perfectly, and yet communication is something that God does, that he listens. We see the Son listening to the Father in John 8:26, and the Father listening to the Son in John 11:41 as the Son prays the Father. The Spirit listening to Father and Son in John 16:13. The Spirit speaking to the Father in Romans 8:26. Communication is in God's heart. It's part of who God is, that God communicates, even when he doesn't need to learn anything. So that's something to wonder in, to marvel at. Perhaps less amazing, but still really shocking, is that God listens to us, right? if you were at a Cornerstone Bible Institute on Wednesday night a couple weeks ago, you heard about Hagar, Abraham's servant who bore Ishmael to him, and she and an angel goes to Hagar and says, "Behold, you are pregnant and shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has listened to your affliction." Ishmael means God hears, right? Wow, how incredible. We have a God who hears. Does that reflect us in our conflicts? If you are in conflict with someone kind of consistently, semi-ongoing, can they say of you, he listens, right? Well, that is what it is to be like God. Exodus 2:23 and 24. We'll get there in a few weeks, right? Fewish, yeah. And during those many days, the kingdom of so Israel's cry for rescue goes up to God, and God heard their groaning, and God remembers his covenant. So we see there again that God hears. So God is a listening God. Isaiah 59:1. Behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened that it cannot save, or his ear dull that it cannot hear. God listens. He values listening. He listens to us, and he exalts the value of us listening, of our leaning in, and not just listening like, okay, I've done it, and I can repeat what you said now, like kudos to me. But the way we listen. Just one verse, Proverbs 18:13. If one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. How many of our conflicts we do exactly that? Give an answer before we hear. But I like these verses that aren't specifically about listening, but show a lot of the heart about listening. Romans 12:15. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. What a beautiful way to have a conflict, right? With that attention to someone's heart. 1 Corinthians 12:26, if one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. We can bring that attitude into our conflict. So we need to have godly listening. We also need to have godly speaking. Go ahead and turn to Ephesians 4:25 to 5:2. And if we can get I don't think that we'll do a mic for this portion yet, because I think you can just shout out answers. But Ephesians 4:25 to 5:2, and this is not specifically about conflict, and only some of it is specifically about communication. But go ahead and turn there, and you can see maybe some principles that we can apply to how we should communicate. I'll read through, and you just listen for some ways of what godly communication is going to be like. Okay? And you can just shout some of those out in a minute. Ephesians 4:25 to 5:2. Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and give no opportunity to the devil. Let the thief no longer steal, but rather let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, so that he may have something to share with anyone in need. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you all. Put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you. Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. So if we were to quickly build some rules of communication and conflict there, again, it's not all about communication. It's not specifically about conflict, but what would be some of the rules that we would say, I want to value what God values in the way that I speak. So anyone just want to toss one out? Okay, speaking the truth, right? Great. Speaking the truth. And I think that one of the ways that we can do that, not just saying what's on our heart, although that's true, but am I accurately saying what I think that the other person is saying? Right? Because it's pretty easy to malign them a little bit, kind of misquote them a little bit to kind of push your way? And also, am I honest about myself? Can we say, I am struggling with a lot of selfishness here. I know that I'm not seeing this in a right way. I want my way right now, and I'm trying to be humble, right? Is that speaking honestly? Yeah, and not doing that in a proud way or justifying. We could say so much more about being honest, to not tweak the conversation to make our side seem better than it is. Maybe you've been tempted. It's not quite a lie, but you're like, well, the results of this are just going to be amazing, and so many people are going to be impacted if we do it this way. I'm like, well, deep down, I know it's not that big of a deal. It's just my preference, right? Or it's just going to be like a 75% win, and I'm presenting it as a 90% win, right? Just being honest. Okay, what is something else there? So godly speech is going to be honest. It's going to be, yeah, it is going to be building the other person up, not tearing them down. What words can I use in this point to best minister to them? How could I refresh them? How could I nourish them, even though we want different things? Saints, this is so beautiful because we have God's Spirit in us. We are being discipled. This is how our conflicts can be. This is a miracle, but not impossible. We have the same Spirit who hovered over the waters at creation in us. That's pretty cool. Okay, something else. Okay, yeah, so not being sinfully angered. We can have conflicts where we don't sinfully get angry. Being aware of like, okay, I'm starting to feel sinful anger. I'm not going to act upon that. Calvin. Okay, right. So not lying, being honest. It doesn't say be kind, boy, but look at Ephesians 4:31-32. Without bitterness, without wrath, without anger, we talked about clamor or slander. Boy, it can be awfully tempting to get slanderous when we're in a conflict. You always. Well, that's not really true. I'm just lying about you there. You don't always do that negative thing. I just slandered you, really. Instead of kindness, tenderhearted, forgiving. You see any others there? Timely, right? As fits the occasion. Robert Jones writes, "What words will best minister to this person at this time? What words are fitting?" Right? So just a little bit, and we've spent time, and we will again. This is part of what discipling one another is, part of what discipling our kids is. We have to cultivate this in our lives so that we can help our kids cultivate this. Did I see a hand, Pastor Joshua? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, we could build up on this more, but we don't have time. So strategies. So godly listening and speaking. So we are committed to. And what is strategy number 1? Okay. So to know the person. So a sympathetic, generous, loving, committed heart, individualized care. Godly listening and godly speaking, we see how much humility is so key here. And now we're going to try to cultivate some, let's see here. I don't even know where I am. Strategy 3. Okay. We are going to work together with mutual understanding to solve problems. Okay. So work together with mutual understanding to solve problems. And I think that we're going to get to some fun skills here. But again, we're still cultivating what our hearts are. And so this is kind of what follows after we, and you can sometimes just go straight to this if you have already been sanctified and humble and godly listening and godly speaking. But this could also be a great time to say, have I sinned against you? Have I asked for forgiveness? Are we currently being reconciled? Okay, I know that got a little heated here. I love you and you love me. We still can't agree, though. I want to serve you and you want to serve me, but there's some differences. So, okay. We've got a decision we need to make. And so now we want to remember a few key passages. You see them there. 1 Corinthians 13:5 about love. It does not seek its own way. Now that doesn't mean that you're not thinking you should still do something because it's the most loving way, right? This is not, it's not just like I want McDonald's and you want In-N-Out. Of course, the In-N-Out's the right choice. I don't know who wants McDonald's. But anyways, okay, so we're not talking about that here. So like that would be an example of love seeking its own way. I want, you want. But to have this remembering, even in as we're trying to both serve, we're trying to serve another group of people, we're trying to serve our kids, we're trying to serve the church, not seeking its own way. Doesn't mean that your own way is not the right choice, but it's not for that reason. It's not my way. Matthew 22:39, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 7:12, so whatsoever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. Boy, how many times would we have no conflict if we were just rolling with these, right? How many of our little skirmishes, if I was loving you, well, of course I'd want to watch the movie you want to watch. Right? Philippians 2:1-4 is such a beautiful passage, and I think it's up there, yeah. If there's any encouragement in Christ, we know there is. If there's any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, partnership, fellowship, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. That needs to be the ground rule that we are trying to come together with a mutual understanding as we're seeking agreement. I am pursuing not my interest, but the interest of others. We see it beautiful how Jesus did that in humbling himself. There's also other examples in Philippians 2 of that same attitude. Paul being willing to be poured out on the sacrificial offering of the saints. Timothy, how he's generally concerned for their welfare. They all seek their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ, in Philippians 2:20-21. How Epaphroditus was so concerned that they even knew that he was sick while he was longing for them. The whole chapter 2 is full of that attitude. So again, those are kind of like some of the ground rules that we're bringing into this. This is not about me. This is about your welfare, or together we're seeking another group's welfare. Okay, but still, we could still cultivate skills, because all of those are great commitments to have. That is Christ's Spirit working in you. And sometimes we're still stuck. We're still trying to make a decision. So here's a problem-solving tool, and it's called the issue, position, interest model. Okay, it's a problem-solving tool. It's the issue, position, interest model. So this is taken from Robert Jones' book, Pursuing Peace, which is taken from Peacemakers. And if you have Peacemakers by Ken Sande, it's in chapter 11. If you're like in a longer ongoing conflict, like with neighbors over a barking dog, which is the example there, it's kind of a neat example of a little bit more depth of chapter 11 of Peacemakers. But hopefully this is a tool that we can use again and again. So, again, Philippians 2, not seeking our own interests, having the same mind. Or Romans 12:10 is good ground rules here. I'm going to love one another. I'm going to outdo one another in showing honor. Okay, so as we do that, first we want to know what the issue is. Okay? What is the issue? You can see how this has to follow asking for forgiveness, because a lot of times our conflicts kind of tailspin. You start saying nasty things about someone. You're realizing I've got so much anger and these past things are coming up and I thought I forgave them, but I really hadn't. Okay, so we're going to need to deal with that relational stuff. And now we need to say, okay, so there's a issue. And so this is a specific, concrete decision we need to make. It's a question and we need to answer. And so we need to work hard to clarify what the issue is, what the question is, okay? What decision needs to be made. And so this is an issue. Then there are positions, okay? There are issues, the decision, and then there are positions. Positions. And these are preferred decisions or answers that one party brings to the discussion. So this is my position, this is yours. So this is requiring a little clarity of thinking. And so this is a skill that you guys can be cultivating. Okay? Okay, we've been talking a while. Can we clarify what the issue is? What decision needs to be made? What question we're trying to answer? What is my position? What is yours? What is the outcome that I want? What is my perspective on this? Okay. And we'll give an example. And then there are interests. Okay? Interests are, so let's say and we'll do something, what example did I decide on? But we obviously need to do it here. As a issue is like we just had a fight that got bigger than it really needed to be about whether we should go to vacation at the beach or should visit someone's family. Okay, so Melissa wants to visit her parents, and I want just to take our family to the beach. This is not a real thing. She would pick the beach. No. I hope her parents aren't listening. So, okay. So anyways, okay. So that is a concrete question, right? We have a decision to make. Where should we spend our family vacation time? Visiting in-laws or going to the beach? Okay? There is a position each side has. I want to go to the beach with my immediate family, and I have got interests. And so interests are the reasons, arguments, or motives that support your position. Reasons, arguments, or motives. Well, it's been a really busy season. And I know that I'm tired. We've been having some conflict. I don't really know that spending time with your in-laws is going to be really valuable now. I have a great relationship with them. I haven't been spending a ton of time with the kids. How nice would it be to get away from the television? The television is always on at your parents' house, let's just say. Okay? So you can see there what my interest for that position is. Right? I've got a bunch of motives there, and you can see why it's important to care about the person, right? Because I just gave you, in my imaginary heart, a little picture. There is some noise in my soul there, right? There are concerns and wanting to spend time with the immediate family, and it has been busy and wanting quiet. Okay. And then she's like, in this imaginary story, my parents are getting older, and we only get to see them every 2 years. And my dad's been sick, and they really need some help around the house. And there's some projects we could help with. and the kids really haven't been doing much, and they need to learn a good work ethic. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. So there you can see what the interests are for that position and what the issue is. And there's a mix there. Like some of those are concrete, some of those are abstract. You can see that there are personal issues there, that there are personal concerns. That may not always be true. Sometimes it may just be at work and two departments are trying to figure out where the resources go. But there could be heart issues there. One guy's identity is deeply involved in his boss's approval, and the other guy is not. Okay, so we are curious as we're navigating this, what's going on in this person's heart? Are they worried about their parents? Are they tired from so much noise? Okay. Now, and this comes from Ken Sande's Peacemaker's book. Here's a quote. While interests may sometimes clash as well, in many situations, the parties' primary interests are surprisingly compatible. When people focus on interests rather than positions, it's usually easier to develop acceptable solutions. And you can see that there, right? Really, as we listen to these interests, our hearts are not that off, right? We're both interested in loving our immediate family. It's not that I don't love her parents. It's not that she doesn't love me in this example. Really, there's a lot of love going on. There's a lot of desires to be healthy. It's just going to have to... So it's with this that we are going to be thinking, now, with this context, how can I look out for your interest? Robert Jones writes, the art of successful resolution of these matters involves sensitively understanding and humbly seeking to capture the other person's interest in a mutually satisfying outcome. Now, this can be a lot of dying to yourself if one person is very committed to being selfish and the other person's very committed to being servant. I mean, really, by God's grace, both of you are very committed to serving and the other's good. But maybe for someone who is married to a spouse who isn't saved, this could be very hard. So in this step, we're working on doing more than just compromising. We're trying to hear what someone's interests are for the position that they have, and as much as possible, trying to say, can we capture everyone's interest in this? You want rest, and I want to serve. Is there a way we can do both of these things at the same time? Can a trip to Ohio include some days of serving my parents, and also on the same trip, can we get away to a cabin and enjoy some days with our immediate family? Well, your parents aren't going to like that. Well, I know, but we can work through that, right? So is there a way we can accomplish both of these things at the same time? So an important skill here is when someone shares, so like you are asking, so why do you want that? And you're listening, and you're trying to bring out what their interests are, what their motives are. A great skill to cultivate is to repeat back to the person, I hear that you think we should do this. And from listening to you, it sounds like you are really tired and that this has been a crazy season for you, and you miss the kids. Is that what I hear you saying? Now, is there going to be a lot of conflict after we're doing that kind of loving? I mean, you might still have a decision to make, but that is probably going to melt the person's heart that you're talking to. For those of you who've been growing in this, you would testify that this is a super useful skill and a way to communicate love. And then the other person could say, so what I hear you saying is you're really worried that we live so far away from your parents. You know that they have needs and that they're getting more needs as they get older, and our time is limited with them. You know how much they miss the grandkids, and that makes you sad. That's a burden that you bear almost every day, right? Like, again, is there going to be a whole lot of conflict here? No, right then, you've got two saints who are loving one another, right? Godly speaking, godly listening, and saying, now we still do have to come to a decision. Let's each spend a day praying about this, and let's think about how we could come back together and maybe accomplish both of these interests at the same time. So in this example here, is it any more about the positions that we really have? Not really. It's really all about interest at this point. And what is our commitment as Christians? What their interests are, right? I want to do what is good for you. I'm committed to not loving myself, but to loving you. So that's where there's so much wisdom in being able to repeat what the other person says, and then saying, so after I try that, have I understood you? Is there anything else you would want to add? Now that might sound a little cheesy, right? But practice it. And okay, so let's see here. I'm just trying to skim. Right, because then after that is going on, you could be brainstorming decisions together. I think a lot of time you're going to see the eagerness of, particularly if you're both saved, the eagerness of the other saint to see if I can serve you by helping you as much as I can with this goal that is that the issues that you are concerned about. One kind of caution point. As you're doing this, be careful. You may notice sinfulness and selfishness in what the other person says, right? So this is a good time to practice, to be careful how you honestly say things. You may notice, wow, they're pretty selfish about this a beach thing. I mean, I kind of made it sympathetic, but I could have just been really selfish. And as you're repeating back to that person, this is an opportunity to get in some subtle digs that we don't want to do. Don't back that person into a corner. Don't kind of shame them. Well, what I hear you saying is that you are full of self-pity because of your work week. And you really are being pretty selfish, and you just want time alone. That puts the other person in like, well, you're kind of describing me, and I am, that's kind of painful, so that is not going to really help. So, yes, we do need to call sin. We do need to confront. It's a great time for sympathy rather than backing someone into a corner, and that can be very dangerous if you are a logical person, or if you think a lot of your logic, right? You can manipulate that person by kind of rephrasing what they're saying in a way that only is shaming them. And so do that in a really generous and kind heart. So this is just a little bit. We have some time for questions. If we could get that mic ready. And what are some questions about anything we've done so far, but maybe most on this idea of issues, positions, interest. And at one of these chapters, I read, this is something I got from Wayne Mack 30 years ago. So Joshua has lived this. So, and I can't remember which part it was. But okay, questions on the practicals of how to do this. Yes. Hold on just a second, and the mic is coming. There you go.
So the last part that you touched on about when the other person is being selfish
Uh-huh.
and not to back them in a corner or shame them. So what do we do at that point? Just compromise or
Yeah, right. So that is a really good question. So as far as the shaming, I mean, particularly not rephrasing it in a way that you're kind of secretly blasting them while trying to rephrase what they're saying. Okay? But it's still very real that you could be trying to compromise with someone that really it's like they're just being really selfish. And so that time of and you're trying to be as sympathetic as possible. So I could think pausing, right? Well, let's both spend some time praying about this. That person may admit it and say, at the end of the day, I'm just really wanting what I want. Okay, and I'm just having a hard time giving this up. Well, we could spend some time praying. But if that person is not really repentant about being selfish, then as much as you are able, is this something that I can give up and let them have their way? And so that's where, with all those ground rules there of a serving, and like that's where serving can really be a joy. It gets tougher with the harder the decision is, right? I mean, like public school versus homeschool. And if one person wants it for selfish reasons, right? Like, wow, like this is a pretty big choice. For this to come down to selfishness, this is going to be hard. But for like, wow, he just really wants steak. I really don't want steak right now, but he really does. Well, then I'm not going to call him on that. I'm just going to serve him. Okay? I guess I got to get steak. Okay, but a great question. Yeah, Caroline. Here comes the mic. Thanks, Kaylee.
How could we apply this in parenting where there's an obvious, more of an authority structure? But I think it can be useful in hearing one another well. So can you think of any things that we could be careful of, or any tips in how this can be applied?
I probably could, and we're going to talk a little bit about parenting next week, and I think that we'll think about this. It is easier to think about walking kids through this. A lot of times, both of their position is going to be fairly selfish, and their interests are fairly selfish. And so you're going to end up calling on, really, hopefully you win them, and they're eager to serve one another and compromise. But a lot of times it feels like, not that I've ever had this experience, it's just that one of them are like, well, one of them's going to have to serve the other one. So I pick you. And so, or maybe neither of them. Now, as far as us with them, this is a great example of way to be humble. So what is my position versus what is theirs? It's going to be interesting. Is my position selfish as a parent, or is my concern really for their good? And so authority is going to make this different, because I may not be able to give up my position on whether that's an appropriate shirt to wear to church, or because I've got reasons why. Now I can still go through this process and listen to their position and their interests, but still, as the authority, I'm still going to have to humbly make a call about why we are choosing this. But it could really show, though, at the same time as I bring up this example about what someone's wearing to a church. Well, why am I into this? Is this about my honor, or is that really an inappropriate shirt? So us going through this with our kids, yes, it could be an example. I'm just totally brainstorming here. It could be an example of a time where we need to exercise godly authority for someone's good, or it could be a time where I realize I'm way more. My heart is involved in this at an equal stage where their heart is. Really, this is not really about what is good or right. This is just me being selfish, and because I feel I'd feel dishonored if they wore that neon color shirt to a church, and this is me being selfish. So like I think there's probably a lot of wisdom, and if we keep coming back to I want to serve them, well, really authority is not lording it over them, but it is serving them. So sometimes that might be conforming to norms, and sometimes it might be letting them not conform to norms because it's really just about serving myself. That's just one example. But I put my email there at the back of those sheets of paper. If you don't have it, it's isaiahmackler@gmail, which is not a huge surprise. Sometimes you notice it with a dot between them, and sometimes it's not there. Both work. And send me those questions, because I would love to spend as much time doing question and answers next week as possible, since it's our end of conflict. So if we have 20 questions, I may recruit Joshua to come up and field them with me, but Joshua, do you got anything to add to Caroline's question there? You've done a lot of parenting, Joshua.
I guess I do have a lot of kids. I was just thinking one of the things that I think is the greatest gifts you can give your children is a lifelong pattern of unselfishness, because you don't usually unselfishness is a virtue, but it's also a skill you kind of learn how to be unselfish. And so you don't really teach your kids to be unselfish by 18 years of you being selfish. So if you've put in 18 years of you preferring you, then you shouldn't really be surprised that that's what they learn to do as well. And so there's just going to be two selfish people. The conflicts are going to get bigger and bigger and more difficult to figure out. So if you can give your kids 18 years so they can know, like, Dad, yeah, he's a leader, he loves the family, he does what's hard, but if it's just about steak, or if it's just about where we eat, or if it's just about his something like that, he would pretty much 99% of the time choose my interest above his own. And then that's going to help them. You're going to see we learn by imitation, so they're going to learn to be. I've learned a lot about being unselfish from Marta. Watching her for so many years. So that's part. I think that's
great.
A gift you can give.
And in part of your Family Matters podcast, you did a couple weeks on unselfishness, right?
I did. Yeah. I kind of forget, but
yeah. So please listen to that. One of the things that I love from that is to say, I'm like, how can I be uncomfortable? Right? So I'm going to go to church, and we can either try to be as comfortable as possible, or we can plan on being uncomfortable. Right? If we go planning and being uncomfortable, it'll put us into relationships where we are giving up our desires for someone else's good.
Yeah, and then also maybe just to add, like, not being unselfish with, like, patting yourself on the back or complaining the whole time. Look at me being unselfish. This is so hard for me. I'm doing this for you. Aren't I a great dad? I would rather, but I'll do this for you. That's just, you just ruining your. That's selfish, unselfish, yeah.
Great, thank you. What are some other questions? Yeah. Hold on. Here's Sarah.
So outside of the context of Christian to Christian or in the family, like coworkers or neighbors, those kind of conflicts where you're talking about heart issues, and I don't think you're going to get to that level, like talking with your neighbor in that, or even your coworker in that. So I'm wondering, how would you resolve a conflict there?
Yeah, well, so I don't know that we don't get to heart issues. Like first of all, we get to 50% of the heart issues because of our concerns. Right, so we're going to be dealing with a lot of our heart issues. If we are thinking about how I can serve, how I cannot be selfish, how I can do what is for their interests, like that is going to solve some. As far as I think that these skills are still going to be really valuable and are basic. Are we clearly defining what the issue is? Your dog is barking in the middle of the night. What is your position? He should be allowed to bark. Mine is that he shouldn't be. Okay. What are the interests there? Well, even getting your neighbor to talk about what their interests are, how this dog means a lot to them. For you to be concerned about what their interest is and why is still going to be communicating love to them. And I think that a lot of people know, although it is not always, that if you are expressing your interest and they're able to communicate back to you what your interests are, you still may have opportunity to negotiate a outcome that is beneficial to both. Well, is there any way that you could keep your dog inside until this time? And so in that book, so Peacemakers chapter 11 goes through a long example of one person is very concerned about their witness for Christ, and I think that the other person isn't saved. So that can give a good example there. Now, I want to add quickly, I think, another. I'm going to give a brief tool. No, I'm not. I'm going to take more questions. Yes, Stanley, because we don't have time for any more tools. Okay, I'm just going to mention it, and then next time we will go. There's this great chapter in Lou Prill's book, Resolving Conflict, that talks about different kinds of conflicts. There's conflicts about differences, conflicts about sin, and conflicts about righteousness, right? So the idea of righteousness is, what should we do, right? So like culture or differences, we have different family backgrounds. We're going to have a ton of differences. You grew up with your baby brothers and sisters this way, and I grew up with them this way. Two families, tons of differences. Sin conflicts is like, you hit me. We have a conflict now. We're going to have to talk about this. Sometimes one person is just acting like a jerk, and then there's a conflict. And then there are conflicts of like we're both committed to doing what is right, and we're having a hard time choosing between beach or extended family. We're having a hard time choosing between public school versus homeschool. And those kinds of things are like, there's a lot of biblical issues there, even if it's not just as simple the Bible says. So that's not at all leading to Stanley's question, but that's something I'd like to spend more time on, because you're probably thinking it. There's like little things and there's big things. Okay, go ahead, Stanley, whatever question you have.
Similar to like kind of what Sarah was saying, like, what if like someone's like non-Christian or being rude to you, let's say at a restaurant, like a waiter or waitress, or you have someone come over to your house to do work and they're rude. So it's like, at what point do you be like, okay, whatever, that's just kind of how they are, overlook it? Or do you, hey, I need to talk to your manager, I need to file a complaint sort of deal? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so I am trying to think. I think that so I don't have an easy answer. I don't know that the Bible has an easy answer. Of course, overlooking offenses, right? I think that you could have an example where we talk about and kids and siblings. School kids have to do this a lot. What is loving? Right? So loving is going to be overlooking a lot of offenses until you realize this is no longer really in this person's interest to be overlooking an offense. I had a friend who had a great saying, when you're right, you're wrong. And so that's not simple, but as a rule of thumb, it's pretty good. is this about my being offended here when I'm right? Like, I shouldn't be treated this way. I came to this restaurant, and when our rights are dominating, I don't know that we're benefiting anyone. But if it's out of love for someone, boy, like that person, they seem like they're really angry, and this has been a pretty bad experience. Am I concerned about that person? What is going on in their life? Do I have a way of communicating God's goodness to that person? But it may be in their best interest to talk to their manager. I can't chapter verse that, but yeah, that's just me brainstorming. I think we could probably all be talking about that afterwards, and all come up with good biblical principles to be applying. Well, we're about out of time, but next time we're going to have more time, I hope, and the plan is to spend some of that time talking more about families and how to institute some of this in parenting. But I also want to give time for whatever question and answers you have. I'll probably take question and answers first. So please prep them and email them, because then I can see if there's a pattern